Listen up, get ready, I'm not gonna take no more. There's a revolution, a revelation going on in my soul. Buckle up, get ready, we're not gonna sit down. Okay, welcome all you citizens of the world. It's Michael James, another edition of the Live from the Heartland show. This is for the week of September 14th, and we are recording it on an infamous day, Wednesday, September 11th. I'm glad to have two of my favorite political people, good friends, Thom Clark and Katy Hogan, joining me. We're going to talk about the debate, which we all watched last night. And then a little bit later on the second portion of the show, I'm going to have Dee Gordon and Jane Addams talking about their new book, The White Mississippi. Stay tuned. We're going to have a lot of good discussion for the next hour here on the show. And whether you're getting it on radio, on YouTube, on CAN TV, we hope you enjoy it. So let me say good morning to you two. I know that we all watched the debate last night. Been a lot of buildup for the last week or two or longer. And we had it. And I'm going to ask each of you what your initial reaction was to the debate. I myself was pretty worried at first when Kamala Harris was asked about the economy and went off into a long kind of ramble. I thought, oh, no. And then the other guy followed up with something that was really terrible. So the air sort of lifted. Things just got better and better from my point of view. How about you, Thom?
Well, the vice president showed her prosecutor chops, and she was clearly well coached on creating several rabbit holes that Trump just very quickly jumped down every single last one. And I thought it was a pretty masterful performance. Can't really think of any major slip-ups. Do I agree with everything she had to say? And we're kind of back to a Cold War framing on some of our international issues. But she has something to say about it. And Trump, what does he want? The dictator of Eastern Europe. Anyway, it was grueling to watch because he's so off the rails. And I think we had better moderation. We can talk about the media later if you want. Katy, what did you think?
Well, Thom, I also was a little nervous before, Michael, like you. But I think it was Jon Stewart I saw who said it later. Once the first question was asked, which is, are you better off economically this year than you were 4 years ago? And neither of them actually answered it. I knew we were back in familiar territory. Yeah. We'll just say what we want, no matter what you ask.
Yep.
As a person who needs to win votes for our side, I was very pleased that, one, that she came across and forced him to shake her hand, the fool. Oh, my God. That was an amazing first step.
He didn't know what to do about it.
No, it's I don't know how to be a normal human being who shakes hands before
meeting people on the street. Oh.
Anyway, I thought she was great. I thought the way she looked at him consistently when he could not ever take his eyes off of straight ahead had power. And yeah, clearly, Thom, he did take every opportunity. I mean, when she mentioned his rallies, oh my God, his favorite thing to lie about, out of the many that he lies about, I think she did the best job possible of making him look as he is. But I have to say, I am impressed by how doggedly he holds on to his craziness. He never veered. He just continually went, oh, no. And he
I realized halfway through, particularly after she delivered the line about 83 million people fired you, that he thinks he's still on a reality show, Apprentice-like, and doesn't have a clue about reality around him. So all he has to fall back on are his memes.
I have been at the door and I had a woman tell me the thing about, okay, did you hear the new rule they passed in California? At which point that whole phrase just made me go, okay, brace yourself, Kate.
Yep.
And it was that the new law was allowing doctors to kill babies up to 28 days after they're born. At which point, because I had talked to this Trump supporter at that point for about 5 minutes, she believed me when I said, look at me, fellow American. No fellow American would allow that law to be passed. That is complete and utter nonsense. And then the other thing I said to her, which I recommend sharing with any Trump supporter you see, I would look more at the person who thought you would be so gullible as to believe that kind of garbage, which did give her pause.
Mm-hmm.
I had never really gone down the rabbit hole of migrants eating cats and dogs, but I think she handled that well. And I also think David Muir handled that well when he said, thank you, there are no pets being eaten.
I thought that the ABC hosts were really good. And, I watch them once in a while on TV. Around our house here, tend to be watching NBC at news, but I really was very impressed with the two hosts from ABC and how they very diplomatically kind of handled his transgressions regarding reality. They would say, like around the FBI and the crime is down, crime is not up. The thing about the babies, they were good.
But you'll note that in the power dynamics of that stage, Trump would only address the male moderator by his first name, never address the female moderator, and never looked at the vice president, except when he was forced to with the opening handshake. I mean, this guy really is in a fragile bubble of his own making. And it was really apparent as people with some normalcy and common sense tried to gently persuade him that, no, that's not quite the way it is.
I like when he had to call IVF fertilization, like he was talking about a soybean field. I mean, really, what the heck? He said it twice. He's like, fertilization. I know what this means.
The moderators were taken aback. There was a quick shot of them as he was doing that. I found myself, and we talked about it in our living room because my household has heard this before. I'm still waiting for a reporter to ask him how many abortions he's paid or arranged for.
That's rude. That's just plain rude. And we don't have to be rude, even though people that we're being rude to are the quintessence of rudeness.
Which is why I know it will never be asked.
It's not fair. Sorry?
Which is why I know it will never be asked, fortunately.
Yeah.
What was your sense? I know you both were devouring the news afterwards and this morning.
I haven't watched any news this morning.
Well, I'm just wondering what people's thoughts were on the reactions to it. I mean, the Democrats are blissed out. And, after the last debate with the president going up against Trump, we were really kind of in shock. And, as much as we had the hype and the lead in that Harris was really good, she was going to handle him and all that, we didn't know what was going to happen. And then we came out of watching it pretty happy. I noticed that people like Josh Hawley from Missouri, senator, he questioned the accuracy of some of the, what she said, and said, where's the fact checking? But by and large, even Republican operatives were said that she had the upper hand, that she did much better than he did, even though they tried to cover it up.
Well, first of all, never quote Josh Hawley. He's crazy.
Well, I just like him so much that I like to point out whenever he's full of it.
Yeah, I mean, of course he's going to say something like that. I think that also, like Tom, I am not, I'm not just between us and the three people watching this. I'm not a fan of some of some of her stands, to be honest.
Yeah,
every time she uses the word lethal force, it just makes me cringe.
Well, that was going to be my next question to you all was, I have a few things down here, but one of the things has been the kind of suck it up, swallow, don't pay attention to the blatant move to the center, even to the right by the Democrats. I mean, we kind of are justifying stuff, Biden's harder position on the border and asylums. And certainly Harris, she tries to distinguish herself around the war in Gaza, but a little bit overly supportive of Israel from my point of view. And in general, and the patriotism we saw at the convention, I mean, the Democrats are really going for the center right now. And I think a lot of progressives, some of them would be very critical. We even think that our Harris wall sign that was ripped off in the front of our house was done perhaps by someone from the ultra left and not the right. The Democrats have definitely moved to the center, and a lot of us are just sort of going along with it so that we can win the election. And then we get to do our shout outs, our demonstrations, our protests.
Okay, a little history here. The left has always gone along, because by the time someone gets to be a presidential candidate, they are no longer left. Okay, so it's just the way it is. But I'm not shy about saying it. I'm not, blowing the horn to the rafters while I'm campaigning for her. But it's also like at any point I can say, look, I'd vote for a tomato over that guy. All right. So that's, once November 5th has come and gone and we've released the world from the grips of another few years of chaos, then we get to turn to her and say, what are you talking about? No fracking. What are you talking about? Lethal force. And why can't you have someone representing the Palestinian cause talk at that lovely little convention party you had? I mean, all of that stuff will come burbling out. I mean, this is part of why we must continue to support people like Brian Derrick's Oath and others who are very specifically targeting the red to blue possibilities down ballot from sea to shining sea, because we need the trifecta big time. And because she will not turn all of a sudden to the left once she's elected.
Katie's making a really important point, which is that it apparently is still a tight election. And I'm beyond trying to understand the former president's base, except we know there's 35% there that just will do anything that he does. We are fighting for the middle. And if I learned way back to McGovern anything about going for the person you feel great about in your heart versus who can win, this is a critical moment where we need to win, and not just the White House, but those down ballot elections, because getting the House and Senate is critical, even if it's a narrow one. But a narrow one we'll learn to live with, and try to make some stuff happen with President Harris.
I think there's a former Trump ally, Scaramucci. Is that his name? I saw him. Basically, he predicted yesterday on MSNBC, I believe, that he thought that her numbers and her popularity would go up after the debate. And I'm wondering if that's true. I think that she probably scored pretty heavily favorable, positive, reached a lot of people. And I do think that she's gonna move ahead in the polls. I don't know what you guys think, but I think that's what's happening.
We pay far too much attention to the polls because it's inexpensive so-called journalism. And it's a reference point about what people were thinking about yesterday. So we need to be doing everything we can to turn out the vote. We're doing a postcard party Friday night, and we have more people signing up than, quite frankly, we thought we'd have. I understand that's your experience with Operation Swing State, Katy, is that you're sending a lot of people up to Wisconsin to try to make sure we get that state. Can you talk a little bit more about where people can plug in?
Thanks for the commercial break there, Tom. OperationSwingState.com, no caps, one word. OperationSwingState.com is the place I'm working for, and also the place that has organized a huge amount of partners, which include Indivisible, which include all the smaller Democratic organizations around the north side and north suburbs. And Swing Left is part of it. Between us all, we've knocked 12,000 doors in Wisconsin. I don't have the number for Michigan, but a slightly lower because more people from this end of the state go to Wisconsin as it's easier. But there are multiple canvases every single weekend. We can turn you into a canvasser, even if you've never done it. And it's no time like the present. This is a great and interesting, every campaign is different in my vast experience of campaigns. And this one holds true. I've never seen so many volunteers pouring out of the woodwork from the last, certainly since Biden stepped down, that was a big increase, but there were already lots of volunteers. So our job is to put them to work and make sure that volunteer energy goes beyond this one time. So a lot of training is happening on the road as we drive up to Wisconsin, a lot of how to do your best at the door, which is always part of my job in these campaigns. And it's really, really great when the door opens and there is someone who actually thinks they're supporting Trump. That's my favorite moment because one, they're never rude, just surprise, surprise. They never slam the door. I've not had one slammed door this time, although I wouldn't be surprised or put off by it. To just make a human connection with a fellow American who has been told that we are the enemy is a really good thing with one guy. And the other thing is there are divided households, just like there were when Obama first ran. And so, we recognize that. And when I go up to a door and it's the two women in the house that I'm supposed to be talking to, and a man answers the door, I ask for the women. In this case, they were both out. So I said, well, how about if you and I talk? And he said, well, I'm not going for your guy because I usually hold up the literature just to jump to the case. And I said, yeah, I could tell. And, we talked a little bit about policing and stuff like that. And finally, and this was in Racine, I think, finally, it had been a blistering hot day and there was absolutely no shade in the area that we walked. So we would walk, to get to shade in order to enter our stuff on minivan. Anyway, I finally said to him, hey, what's with the no trees here? And talking about that, he chuckled and he said, we planted those two, see out there, we planted those and it's against the law because it's on the parkway. And I said, yeah, that's the law in our city too. And I, fist bumped him. I said, like your style, buddy. And that's how we left it. So, I think that's Americans need to talk to one another. And when we get out of our little blue bubble here in Rogers Park, Chicago, Cook County, state of Illinois, there's a whole world out there. Sorry, Michael, you were trying to.
No, I was just going to say, I was going to go back to the debate last night. And one of the things was, I wasn't sophisticated enough to know all the kind of ways that she tricked him into responding and kind of fooled him. But I was impressed with her comments about Ukraine, and if Putin was able to take over Ukraine, he could move on Poland. And then she raised to the 800,000 Polish people in the state of Pennsylvania, that issue, and hopefully that they would side with Harris over the Ukraine war.
That was a brilliant move. That was well done. Really well done.
Covered a breadth of issues while introducing herself to a lot of people. I don't know how many on the fence voters had, convincing evidence from either campaign off of last night, except she really came across as well prepared. She showed facility with 2 hotspots in the world, even if we don't quite agree where she came out on the side of lethal force. But and all Trump could come up with was his favorite dictator from Hungary. I mean,
I know. I mean, really,
absolutely. His aides, those who are left, what is it, 63 cabinet members and top executives from his administration who would never work for him again, and most are voting for Kamala. I mean, it was an amazingly futile effort on the part of the former president.
Yeah, and in case you had any wonder about who would be okay with her after the debate was over, hearing that Dick Cheney is now voting for the same person I am was a little disheartening, to tell you honest. But there you go.
It is quite something else that you have all these Republicans turning on their guy, particularly the ones that know him best. And we'll see how that manifests itself out in the world. What do you all think should be, besides the knocking on doors and talking to our friends, what are things people ought to be paying attention to and doing and encouraging direction of in the remaining days before the big election?
Register to vote. Make sure you're registered. Vote early, like the first day of early voting would be great. If people need to have a mail-in ballot, it's time now for them to mail their application in for that ballot, unless they're on the regular, they always mail it to me list. And at this point, it's to continue to keep the energy high, because we can remind people the polls said that Hillary was going to win right up until the day before she didn't. So just full steam ahead. Make it as if she's running against, Genghis Khan, because she sort of is. Just don't stop until we get past the tape.
I'm looking forward to the story that has a team of reporters following Taylor Swift going door to door to turn out the vote.
Well, wasn't that something else? Talk about an accidental timing. I'm sure it wasn't.
No, she's smart.
Right after, as soon as the debate was over, Taylor Swift comes out in support of Kamala, and bingo, this is a good one. She has billions in followers, apparently. One thing I noticed was an article somewhere, probably in the Washington Post, about people who were undecided in swing states. And I think they had about 20 some odd quotes from people who were pro Harris and about 2 or 3 from pro Trump. So we don't know how the swing states are going. They're the key, apparently, still. We've got to deal with Arizona, Nevada, Michigan, Wisconsin, North Carolina now. I think our opportunities have improved since yesterday. And with that said, I'll give you each about 30 seconds to, if you have any summing up you'd like to share with the masses of listeners.
I'm leaving here and going and registering the staff and clients at Trilogy. That's my 15 seconds.
Right on. How about you, Tom?
Vote early. Make sure others vote often. And we got to have every last couch potato show up this time, because their votes will really count.
Well, okay. I want to thank you for coming on and chewing the fat, so to speak, with me about the great debate last night. It's a historic moment in our history. We are looking forward with enthusiasm to the days ahead until we elect our next president. And it very hopefully will be the first woman president we've ever had. So I want to thank you all for joining me.